alien werewolf girl mechanic, who didn't expect him to lift the engine block himself. Astrid, a Lyraxian mechanic, cursed as the colossal gravitic core refused to cooperate, sending a fresh streak of grease across her white fur. She didn't expect the quiet human watching from the doorway to walk over, effortlessly lift the impossible weight, and simply state, "Step aside, you're doing it wrong." Astrid stumbled back, her rear paws catching on a stray power cable. Her fur, already sticky with grease, bristled. The gravitic core, a colossal assembly of interlocking circuits and shielding plates, now rested perfectly centered on her heavy-duty workbench. It was exactly where she had intended it to go, precisely how she had visualized it for the last hour of grunting, straining effort. Yet she hadn't put it there. He had. Orion, the quiet human, stood over the core, his hands still hovering near its curved surface. His movements had been so fluid, so economical. No visible strain, no grunts of effort. Just a silent, powerful lift that defied the core's immense mass. Her species, the Lyraxians, prided themselves on their strength, their innate understanding of mechanics. This human, however, had just bypassed her advanced tools and her own considerable physical prowess with a casual ease that was utterly infuriating. "You are doing it wrong." His voice had been low, devoid of judgment, yet it resonated with an undeniable authority. Her internal thoughts ignited, a whirlwind of indignation and something else, something hot and unsettling. Wrong. She had been calibrating gravitic cores since she was a pup. She understood the intricate balance of mass and energy dampeners better than most senior engineers on Lyraxis. And this human with his simple, unadorned coveralls and calloused hands dared to tell her she was wrong. Her tail twitched, a clear sign of agitation. Yet beneath the annoyance, an unfamiliar current surged. His strength, raw and unexpected, had been undeniable. It wasn't the brute force of an unthinking beast, but a controlled, precise exertion that spoke of deep, ingrained power. He hadn't just lifted it, he had placed it with an almost gentle accuracy. The image of his broad shoulders tensing, the subtle ripple of muscle beneath his shirt, flashed in her mind. A spark, sharp and insistent, flared within her. It was a reaction she hadn't anticipated, a primal acknowledgement of dominance that both unsettled and intrigued her. She cleared her throat, forcing herself to regain composure. "Wrong, you say?" Her voice came out sharper than intended. "And what exactly makes you an expert on Lyraxian gravitic stabilizers, human?" She gestured dismissively at him, then at the complex array of conduits and energy cells within the core. Orion didn't react to her challenge. His gaze remained fixed on the gravitic core. He ran a gloved finger along a hairline fracture on one of the outer shielding plates, a detail Astrid had mentally noted but dismissed as cosmetic. His eyes, a deep, steady brown, narrowed slightly. "This fissure here," he pointed, his voice even, "it's not cosmetic. It's structural. The alloy is stressed, likely from an uncontrolled atmospheric reentry." Astrid felt a jolt. She had been so focused on the internal power conduits, the alignment of the primary dampeners, that she hadn't considered the external stresses on the shielding with that level of detail. Her brow furrowed. He was right. The crack was subtle, almost imperceptible beneath the grime, but it ran deeper than she had initially assessed. From the corner of her eye, she saw Ronan. The other mechanic, a burly human with a perpetually greasy wrench in hand, leaned against a stack of discarded tires, a faint smirk playing on his lips. Ronan had seen her struggle, had even offered a sarcastic suggestion about using a forklift, knowing full well the garage's ancient model couldn't handle the core's weight. Now, he simply watched, his expression unreadable beyond that hint of amusement. Orion straightened up, turning his attention to Astrid. His posture was relaxed, yet his presence filled the space. He didn't wait for her to respond to his observation about the fissure. "This is a stabilizer for an interstellar transport, yes?" he asked, his question a statement, revealing an unnerving certainty. He paused, allowing her to process. "The primary function involves maintaining equilibrium across multiple spatial dimensions during a FTL jump. but this specific model with its unique energy-dampening field suggests a secondary purpose. What exactly is it designed to stabilize beyond the vessel itself? His gaze was direct, expectant, demanding an honest answer. Astrid felt a strange mix of irritation and grudging respect. He wasn't just guessing. He was observing, deducing, and asking questions that cut to the core of the problem. His understanding, despite his apparent lack of specific Lyraxian knowledge, was unnervingly intuitive. It was as if he could see the underlying physics, the universal principles, beneath the alien casing. She crossed her arms, her claws retracting slightly into her padded palms. "It stabilizes the vessel's temporal displacement field," she admitted, her voice a low growl. "Without it, the transport risks temporal bleed-through during a long-range jump. It's a prototype, cutting-edge Lyraxian tech." She emphasized Lyraxian with a challenging glare, trying to reassert her expertise. Orion simply nodded, absorbing the information. He walked around the core, his fingers lightly tracing the intricate patterns of the power conduits. He wasn't looking at the alien markings, but at the way the conduits were routed, the stress points in their connections. Temporal displacement, he mused, more to himself than to her. That explains the dampening field's unique harmonic frequency. It's designed to counteract chronoton resonance, but the structural integrity of the outer casing, especially around this fissure, will compromise that. He tapped the crack again. Even a minor fluctuation could lead to catastrophic temporal instability. Astrid bristled. "I know that," she snapped, though a part of her wondered if she truly knew it with the same depth of understanding he seemed to possess. She had been focused on the energy flow, the internal mechanics. He was seeing the entire system, the interplay of structure and function, in a way she hadn't. Her initial annoyance at his interference began to shift. The undeniable fact of his strength, combined with this unexpected mechanical insight, was chipping away at her carefully constructed professional pride. She had always been the one to solve the impossible, to master the complex. Now, a quiet human was effortlessly dissecting her problem, and her ego, piece by piece. A strange warmth, not entirely unpleasant, began to spread through her. It was the warmth of being challenged, of being seen not just as an alien mechanic, but as someone whose capabilities were being measured and perhaps even exceeded. The spark of attraction, initially unsettling, now pulsed with a curious energy. She found herself watching him, not with resentment but with a growing fascination. What else could he see? What else did he know? The questions, unbidden, formed in her mind, creating a new kind of intrigue. This wasn't just about fixing a gravitic core anymore. It was about something far more unexpected. Orion looked up from his inspection, his gaze meeting hers. A faint, almost imperceptible hint of a smile touched his lips. "So," he said, his voice calm, "how do you propose we stabilize the temporal displacement field when the primary structural integrity is already compromised?" He wasn't asking for her solution to critique it. He was asking as if they were a team, as if her answer mattered, as if her input was valuable despite his earlier dismissal. The implied collaboration was a subtle, unexpected invitation. Astrid felt a jolt of something akin to excitement. Her tail gave a small, involuntary flick, no longer a sign of irritation, but of active engagement. The challenge was clear, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel alone in facing it. "The field itself is stable enough," Astrid began, her gaze sharp, "but the internal lattice, what you call the structural integrity, is compromised. That lattice is what interfaces with the displacement coils. Without its precise calibration, the jump will be unstable, potentially catastrophic." She paused, her voice softening slightly. "This core is for my transport. It's stranded here on Earth. I'm from Lyraxis." The admission felt heavier than she expected, a vulnerability offered to this quiet human. Orion nodded slowly, absorbing her words without surprise. He ran a gloved finger along a hairline fracture Astrid had previously dismissed as cosmetic. Catastrophic sounds like a word for no return. He looked at her, his eyes steady. Lyraxis. That explains the advanced metallurgy. We have similar lattice structures in our high-rise construction, designed to absorb kinetic transfer. Yours is just scaled down and far more precise. He picked up a small, almost forgotten tool from his own box. The issue here isn't the exotic energy, it's the compromised foundation. We need to reinforce this lattice, not just patch it. Astrid scoffed, a quick, dismissive sound. Reinforce it. With what? Earth-based alloys. They wouldn't withstand the temporal stresses. Your materials are far too primitive for Lyraxian gravitic tech. She crossed her arms, a familiar shield of professional arrogance. She had spent cycles perfecting her craft, mastering alloys and energy fields that Earth hadn't even conceived. To hear him speak of reinforcement felt like an insult to her advanced science. Orion didn't react to her dismissal. He simply held up a small, intricately shaped piece of metal from his toolbox. It was a dense, dark composite, unlike any alloy Astrid recognized. This is a ferropolymer matrix, developed for deep-sea pressure containment. It's designed for extreme resilience and controlled energy absorption, not just brute strength. It's about how the energy is distributed, not just its resistance. He pointed to a section of the core. We could fashion a series of microbraces from this, bonding them at the molecular level with a pulsed sonic welder. It won't be a perfect Lyraxian repair, but it will mimic the original lattice's energy distribution, effectively stabilizing it. Astrid found herself leaning closer despite her initial skepticism. His fingers, calloused but precise, traced patterns on the core's surface. He wasn't talking about brute force. He was talking about fundamental physics, about materials science, about engineering principles that transcended species or technology level. Her own preconceptions, built on years of Lyraxian superiority, felt suddenly fragile. The logic was undeniable. The core was failing due to structural weakness, a basic engineering problem, not some insurmountable alien energy anomaly. He was seeing the problem through a universal lens. A warmth, distinct from the initial spark, settled in her chest. It was the warmth of humility, of realizing that true expertise wasn't about the flashiest tech, but about understanding the core principles. Orion wasn't just fixing a part. He was teaching her something profound about perspective. Orion glanced up, catching her eye. "Reminds me of a bridge project I worked on once," he said, his voice low, almost contemplative. Old iron structure built to last, but the constant vibrations from the city were causing microfractures. Everyone wanted to replace it, tear it down. But we found a way to reinforce the internal supports, absorb the kinetic energy, redistribute the stress. Ended up stronger than a new one. He looked back at the core. Sometimes the simplest solutions, applied with precision, are the most elegant. He wasn't just fixing her core. He was finding a purpose in its challenge, a reflection of his own enduring spirit. This wasn't just about a broken part. It was about the satisfaction of solving an intricate puzzle, a purpose he hadn't realized he was missing until now. A shadow fell across the workbench. Ronan, who had been observing from a distance, approached. He held out a specialized pneumatic wrench, its grip worn smooth from use. "You'll need this for those micro-braces, Orion," he said, his voice devoid of its usual teasing. "Gets into those tight spots better than anything else." His expression held a new, quiet respect for the human who had once been just Orion, the quiet one. Orion took the tool, a silent acknowledgement passing between the men. Just then the garage door slid open with a soft sigh. Maeve entered, carrying a tray laden with steaming mugs and a plate of golden-brown pastries. The scent of sweet spice filled the air. "Thought you two might be needing a little sustenance," she said, her smile gentle as she surveyed the intense scene. Her gaze lingered on Orion, then shifted to Astrid, a knowing glint in her eyes, as if she understood the silent connections forming between them. Astrid felt an unexpected comfort from Maeve's presence, a warmth that settled deep within her. It wasn't just the smell of the pastries. It was the quiet, human kindness that seemed to emanate from the woman, a stark contrast to the sterile efficiency of her Lyraxian life. Maeve placed the tray on a clear section of the workbench, her hand briefly touching Orion's shoulder. The touch was light, but conveyed a depth of unspoken affection and support. "You're making good progress," Maeve observed, her voice calm, a gentle counterpoint to the hum of the garage. "You always were good at finding solutions, Orion." Orion offered Maeve a rare, genuine smile, taking one of the mugs. "This one's a bit more complicated than a leaky faucet, Maeve," he admitted, his eyes still on the core. "But we'll get there." He looked at Astrid, a silent question in his gaze, an invitation to continue their intricate dance of problem-solving. They had found their rhythm, an unexpected alliance forged in the crucible of a broken alien machine. The core remained stubbornly inert, its ultimate fate still uncertain, but the path to its repair now seemed clearer, illuminated by their combined efforts and the growing understanding between them. The path to repair might have seemed clearer, but the core itself had other ideas. Orion reached into the intricate lattice, Ronan's specialized microbrace tool a natural extension of his fingers. Astrid watched, her internal scanner tracking the power flow he was attempting to reroute. A faint click echoed from deep within the core. Then, a sharp, metallic pop. A tiny spark briefly ignited, vanished. The scanner's display flickered red, indicating a complete circuit breach. Astrid gasped, pulling back sharply. "No, not there." Her white fur bristled. She snatched the scanner from the workbench, her fingers flying across its controls, zooming into the core's fractured heart. The primary singularity conduit. It shattered. Despair, cold and immediate, settled over her. The faint shimmer of hope she had nurtured moments ago evaporated. Orion remained still, his hand still inside the core, feeling the sudden deadness. He slowly withdrew, his eyes fixed on Astrid's scanner. The shattered component, visible even through the intricate housing, was small, no larger than his thumb, but clearly vital. "What is it?" he asked, his voice calm despite the sudden setback. Astrid shook her head, her gaze distant. "It's a singularity conduit, Lyraxian design, proprietary. It calibrates the gravitic field for interstellar jumps, translates temporal displacement into manageable energy streams. Without it, the core is useless. The transport is stranded." Her voice was low, heavy with defeat. "You won't find anything like it on Earth or anywhere else beyond Lyraxian space. It's unique." She gestured to the fractured component on the scanner. "The material itself is a crystalline structure grown under specific gravitic pressures. Earth doesn't have the atmospheric conditions, the resources, or the technology to replicate it." She looked at him, her eyes clouded. "It's an irreplaceable component, Orion. Truly." Orion took the scanner from her, his touch gentle. He studied the image, then meticulously, slowly, began to trace the damaged conduit's path within the core's schematics. He wasn't looking at the material, he was looking at the function. His brow furrowed in concentration. He turned the scanner over in his hands, examining the internal structure, the energy pathways it once facilitated. "The material is unique," you said, Orion mused, his voice quiet. "But its function is to conduct and calibrate, to manage energy flow, to stabilize displacement." He picked up a small piece of discarded ferropolymer from a prior repair job, turning it over and over in his calloused fingers. "The conduit. It's a pathway. A highly specialized pathway, yes, but still a pathway." Astrid watched him, a flicker of irritation, then reluctant curiosity, replacing her despair. What was he thinking? He couldn't possibly understand the intricacies of Lyraxian singularity mechanics. Orion looked up, meeting her gaze. His eyes held a focused intensity that she was beginning to recognize. "We can't replicate the material, but we can replicate the function, with something else." He gestured vaguely at the garage, then back to the core. "Something stronger. Something engineered to handle the stresses you described." "What are you suggesting?" Astrid asked, her voice sharp with a mix of skepticism and a desperate, almost imperceptible sliver of hope. "A patch. This isn't a leaky pipe, Orion. This core handles immense temporal stresses during a jump. It's not a matter of simple conductivity. It's about quantum stability, field resonance." Not a patch, Orion stated, his voice firm, unwavering. A replacement, a custom-fabricated part. He walked over to an older, heavy-duty fabrication unit in the corner of the garage. It was a robust piece of earth machinery, scarred from years of use but clearly well-maintained. He ran a hand over its main console. We design it to withstand your temporal stresses. We build it from earth-based ferropolymers, perhaps layered with a specific ceramic composite, designed to integrate with your existing circuitry. It will require precise machining, careful calibration, and a deep understanding of structural integrity. Astrid stared at him. The audacity of his proposal was breathtaking. He wasn't just suggesting a repair, he was suggesting an improvement, a fundamental alteration of Lyraxian technology using Earth components. It sounded impossible, yet his conviction was a powerful current. Her prior arrogance, her ingrained Lyraxian bias, felt flimsy now, slowly eroding under the weight of his quiet confidence. She found herself truly considering it. This human, this Orion, was not just a mechanic. He was a builder, a problem solver who saw beyond the obvious. The idea of placing complete trust in his ingenuity, in his earthbound knowledge, was both unsettling and, surprisingly, deeply comforting. She felt a growing reliance on him, a feeling she had never anticipated. You think you can fabricate a singularity conduit with Earth materials? Her voice was quieter now, stripped of its challenge, replaced by a nascent wonder. Orion turned back from the fabrication unit, his gaze direct. I think we can build a component that performs the same function or better. It's about understanding the forces involved, Astrid, the energy transfer, the field stabilization, not just the material composition. He retrieved a dusty datapad from a shelf, its surface clean once he wiped it with his sleeve. He began sketching, quick, decisive lines appearing on the screen. His focus was absolute. Astrid watched his hands, then the evolving schematics. He wasn't just talking, he was already planning, visualizing the complex steps. The precision in his movements, the clarity of his thought, revealed a depth of discipline she hadn't encountered before. Her initial despair gave way to a surge of pure, unadulterated hope. This was not just a repair, it was a partnership. The transport cannot remain inert for long, Astrid stated, her voice regaining some urgency. My mission, it's vital. Lyraxis depends on this core. Interstellar stability relies on my return. She did not elaborate further on the diplomatic mission, but the gravity in her tone conveyed its immense importance. Orion looked up from the datapad, his eyes locking with hers. Then we make it happen, together. His hand, warm and firm, settled briefly on hers where it rested on the workbench. It was a simple touch, yet it conveyed a world of unspoken understanding, a shared purpose that resonated deep within her. She felt a warmth spread through her, chasing away the last vestiges of her despair. They had a new, daunting challenge, but they would face it as one. Orion shifted the datapad, pulling it closer to her. Let's start with the field resonance parameters. How accurate does the frequency calibration need to be? Orion asked, his finger tracing a schematic on the datapad. Astrid leaned in, her gaze sharp, analyzing the complex wave patterns. The Lyraxian singularity conduits operate within a tight spectral band. Deviation beyond 0.007 deltas would cause catastrophic field collapse during an interstellar jump. We need absolute precision. She pointed to a specific frequency range. Can your fabrication unit achieve that level of control? With careful calibration and the right material composition, yes, Orion replied, already modifying the input parameters. The ferropolymer has a unique crystalline structure that can be tuned. It's not Lyraxian tech, but the physics of energy transfer are universal. He began programming the fabrication unit, its internal mechanisms whirring to life. The air grew thick with the subtle scent of processed metals. For hours they worked, a silent choreography of shared expertise. Orion adjusted the intricate laser array, guiding the molecular deposition of the ferropolymer. Astrid, with her Lyraxian scanner, meticulously monitored the nascent conduit's resonant frequency, providing constant feedback. Each adjustment, each microscopic layer, brought the component closer to its required specifications. Her initial skepticism had evaporated, replaced by a profound respect for Orion's steady hands and uncanny intuition for material science. He anticipated her warnings, often making a correction before she even vocalized the need. "The internal lattice is forming perfectly," Astrid murmured, watching the scanner display. "The energy channels are aligning." Hope, bright and potent, surged through her. This component, born of Earth ingenuity, might truly work. Orion nodded, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow. Now for the final phase, integrating the field stabilization array. This is where it gets delicate. He carefully lifted the newly formed singularity conduit, a gleaming, intricate device, and positioned it within the transport's core housing. The fit was exact. He began securing the conduit's power couplings, linking it to the transport's main energy grid. Astrid stood ready, her diagnostic tools poised, monitoring every power fluctuation. A low thrum emanated from the core as energy began to flow into the new component. The transport, dormant for so long, seemed to awaken. Suddenly, a high-pitched whine pierced the air. Red warning lights flashed across Astrid's console. "Power surge. The main capacitor array is overloading," she cried, her voice laced with panic. Sparks erupted from a conduit near the transport's gravitic core, showering the workbench. "It's a cascade failure. The old power regulators are giving out under the new load." Astrid lunged for an emergency override panel, her fingers flying across the alien interface. "I'm trying to reroute primary power, but the system is locking down." Her fur bristled, a primal fear seizing her. If the core detonated, her mission, her transport, everything would be lost. Orion didn't hesitate. "The garage's main power conduit," he shouted, his eyes darting to a heavy cable running along the ceiling. Without a word, he grabbed a heavy-duty power splitter from a nearby drawer. He bypassed Astrid's frantic attempts at the alien panel, instead yanking at a thick power line connected to the transport's auxiliary systems. He swiftly connected the splitter, then with a surge of strength, wrenched open a nearby wall panel, exposing the garage's ancient electrical wiring. "Ronan," Orion roared, "the main circuit breaker. We need to dump power from the primary grid." Ronan, who had been observing from a respectful distance, reacted instantly. He was already moving, sprinting towards the garage's main breaker box, his knowledge of the old building's infrastructure proving invaluable. "On it, Orion," he yelled back, his hands already on the heavy lever. Orion, meanwhile, was connecting the auxiliary power line, a makeshift solution, directly into the garage's stable power source. His movements were swift, precise, born of years of dealing with unpredictable electrical systems. He ignored the scorching heat and the acrid smell of burning insulation. "Astrid, divert all non-essential power. Now." Astrid, still grappling with the unresponsive alien controls, finally managed to force a partial power down. The red alarms on her console flickered, then dimmed slightly. The desperate whine from the gravitic core began to subside, though sparks still crackled ominously. Just then Maeve rushed into the garage, her expression a mix of concern and steely resolve. She took in the chaotic scene, the sparking wires, the frantic energy of Orion and Astrid. She moved directly to Orion, placing a calm, steady hand on his shoulder. "You're doing well, Orion. Breathe." Her voice, a quiet anchor amidst the storm, cut through the noise. Orion met her gaze, a brief flicker of exhaustion in his eyes, but his hands never stopped working. Almost there, he grunted, tightening a connection. Ronan, with a grunt of effort, threw the main breaker, plunging the garage into momentary darkness, save for the emergency lights and the still glowing console on Astrid's transport. The violent sparks from the core instantly ceased. The high-pitched whine died completely. Silence descended, heavy and absolute, broken only by the rhythmic thrum of the transport's now stable, but diminished, power systems. Orion slumped against the wall, catching his breath, his hands singed but steady. Astrid stared at her console. The overload indicators were gone. The new singularity conduit was functional, albeit at reduced power. The transport had been saved. She looked at Orion, his face streaked with grease and soot, his eyes intense. He had not only anticipated the surge but had acted with astonishing speed and ingenuity, using Earth technology to prevent a catastrophic failure in her Lyraxian transport. He was not just a mechanic. He was a force of nature, an unexpected guardian. She felt a profound gratitude, so deep it bordered on reverence. He had saved her mission, her life, perhaps even her civilization. She realized with startling clarity that his steady presence, his quick thinking, his unwavering belief in solutions were indispensable. He was her anchor. Orion watched Astrid, seeing the relief wash over her features, replacing the terror. He felt a surge of triumph, not for himself, but for them. He couldn't imagine facing any challenge without her by his side, her alien insights perfectly complementing his practical skills. This shared struggle, this near disaster, had solidified something powerful between them. Their alliance was no longer just about fixing a machine. It was about two beings from different worlds, facing the unknown as one. The main power grid will need extensive repairs, Ronan said, his voice a little hoarse, surveying the damaged wiring. But the transport is stable. You two did good. Maeve smiled, a knowing warmth radiating from her. Indeed, a remarkable team. Astrid walked over to Orion, her hand gently touching his arm, a silent acknowledgement of their shared victory. We stabilized it, she said, her voice quiet, filled with awe. The conduit is integrated. The core survived. The immediate danger had passed. The path to Lyraxis was still fraught with challenges, but they had overcome a critical hurdle together. Astrid nodded, her gaze sweeping across the control panel. We stabilized it, she repeated, a quiet determination in her voice. Now, the final sequence. Full power to the gravitic core. Orion moved to the main power conduit, his fingers tracing the complex wiring they had just reconfigured. Ready when you are, Captain. Astrid activated the primary sequence. A low thrum resonated through the transport, growing steadily. Energy readings on her console climbed, a delicate dance of power flow. Orion watched the external indicators, ready to make any necessary manual adjustments. Energy flow normalizing, Astrid reported, her eyes fixed on the display. Gravitic field integrity at 90%. 95. Suddenly, a high-pitched whine pierced the air. A warning indicator flashed on Astrid's screen. External interference, Lyraxian signature detected. Astrid's fur bristled. A scout ship. They're attempting to disable the core remotely. Her fingers flew across the console, trying to override the intrusive signal. They're trying to destabilize the gravitic field. Orion scanned the garage, his mind racing. He saw the weak point. The structural integrity of this old building, he mused aloud. It's a Faraday cage, but a shoddy one. If we can create a localized interference pattern, he pointed to a specific section of the garage's metal roof structure, a grid of reinforcing beams. Astrid, can you reroute a low-frequency pulse, a broad-spectrum wave, through the external power regulator we just installed, directly into the building's metal framework? Astrid looked up, her eyes wide with understanding. A localized jamming field using the garage itself as the antenna. Brilliant. She rapidly rekeyed her console, rerouting auxiliary power. It will be crude but effective. The scout ship's interference intensified, the transport's core readings fluctuating wildly. A tremor ran through the garage. They're pushing hard, Astrid gritted out, sweat beading on her brow. My override isn't holding them off entirely. Now Orion commanded, his voice firm. He grasped a thick power cable, connecting it to a temporary terminal he had prepared. Ronan, hit the main external breaker for exactly 3 seconds when I give the word. Maeve, stand by the emergency cutoff. Ronan, already at the breaker panel, nodded grimly. Maeve stood ready, her calm presence a steady anchor in the escalating chaos. "Ready, Orion," Astrid called, her hands poised above the controls. "Ronan now," Orion shouted. With a loud clack, the external power cut. For a moment, the garage plunged into a dim emergency light. Orion quickly connected the cable to the metal beam structure. "Astrid, activate the pulse." Astrid hit the command. A low, resonant hum pulsed from the very walls of the garage. The external interference warning on her console flickered, then vanished. The high-pitched whine outside died away. "They're gone," Astrid breathed, disbelief and relief washing over her. The localized field, it scrambled their signal. "Ronan, power back on," Orion instructed. The lights flared back to full brightness. Orion disconnected the temporary cable, his breathing heavy. The gravitic core readings on Astrid's console were steady, climbing steadily towards optimal. "Full power," Astrid whispered, her eyes shining. "The core is stable, optimized, ready for departure." She looked at Orion, a profound sense of awe and connection in her gaze. He had again saved the mission, not with Lyraxian tech, but with his unique blend of Earth ingenuity and unwavering resolve. He saw the universe in a way she never had. Orion met her gaze, a warmth spreading through him. "We did it." He felt a deep satisfaction, not just from the successful repair, but from the seamless partnership they had forged under pressure. Their minds, their skills, their very spirits were perfectly aligned. Ronan let out a whoop, clapping Orion on the shoulder. That was something, never seen anything like it. He shook his head, a wide grin on his face, blocking an alien signal with a glorified lightning rod. "You're a madman, Orion." Maeve approached, a gentle smile gracing her lips. "A brilliant madman, Ronan, and a truly remarkable team." She looked from Orion to Astrid, her eyes conveying a wisdom that transcended words. The universe works in mysterious ways, bringing the right people together at the right time. Astrid walked over to the transport's open hatch. She placed her hand on the cool metal, feeling the steady thrum of the fully operational core. It was ready. Her mission, so vital, so urgent, was within reach. Lyraxis was waiting. But as she looked back at Orion, standing amidst the familiar clutter of his garage, a new realization bloomed within her. Her mission was not just about returning to Lyraxis. It was about what she had found here on Earth with him. The unexpected ally, the profound respect, the deep, undeniable connection that had woven itself into the fabric of her being. She had come seeking a repair, but she had found a purpose far greater than she could have imagined. Orion stepped closer, his hand reaching for hers. Their fingers intertwined, a silent language passing between them. He felt her internal conflict, the pull of her world, and the magnetic force drawing her to his. "The transport is ready," Astrid said, her voice barely a whisper, her eyes fixed on his. "But my mission has changed." She had always been driven by duty, by the needs of her people. But now, a new path presented itself, one she had never considered possible. "What is your mission now, Astrid?" Orion asked, his thumb gently stroking her hand. He would follow her to the stars or build a home with her here, whatever she chose. He was ready for anything, as long as they were together. She looked at him, her gaze clear and unwavering. "To understand this connection. To explore what we can build together. For Lyraxis, for Earth, for something entirely new." Her choice was not to abandon her people, but to redefine her service, to bring a new alliance into being, one forged in trust and mutual respect. Orion's smile was soft, profound. "Then our journey has just begun." He squeezed her hand, a silent promise of shared adventures. They stepped out of the garage, the evening sky a canvas of emerging stars. The air was cool, carrying the scent of Earth soil. Above them, the distant pinpricks of light beckoned, but their focus was on each other. The immediate threat was gone, the transport was ready, and their alliance, born of necessity, had blossomed into something extraordinary. Their shared future. An uncharted expanse of possibility lay before them, no longer dictated by ancient protocols, but by the undeniable pull of their intertwined destinies. Ronan approached, a wide grin splitting his face. "Well, that was a show," he said, clapping Orion on the shoulder. "Never thought I'd see an alien transport fixed with spare Earth parts, let alone one of them decide to stay." His eyes twinkled with genuine admiration for Astrid. Maeve joined them, her arm linking through Orion's. "Some destinies are just too strong to ignore," she murmured, her gaze warm as she looked at Astrid. "You found your way home, in a manner of speaking." Astrid felt a flush of warmth spread through her fur. This human acceptance, this simple kindness, was a profound contrast to the rigid protocols of Lyraxian society. "Thank you, all of you," she said, her voice softer than usual. "This home is unexpected." She looked at Orion, a silent promise passing between them. "So what's the plan, Captain?" Ronan asked, gesturing vaguely towards the stars. "That ship isn't going anywhere without you, but you're not going anywhere without him." Orion squeezed Astrid's hand. "We're figuring that out," he replied, his eyes never leaving Astrid's. "Astrid's mission has changed, but it hasn't ended. It's just broadened." Astrid nodded. "My people need more than just a functional transport. They need understanding. An alliance built on something deeper than treaties." Her gaze drifted to the transport, now silent and stable within the garage. "The ship is a tool. What we do with it, or where we take it, defines the true mission." Later that evening, in the quiet comfort of Orion's small, functional home, Astrid observed the unfamiliar Earth artifacts. A worn leather-bound book, a simple wooden carving, photographs of smiling faces. Each item spoke of a life deeply rooted, a stark contrast to her transient existence. "It's quiet here," she observed, picking up a smooth, river-worn stone from a shelf. "Lyraxian cities always carry the faint resonance of gravitic engines." Orion leaned against the doorframe, watching her. "Earth has its own rhythms. Wind, rain, the distant call of a night owl." He walked over, gently taking the stone from her hand and replacing it. "What are you thinking, Astrid?" She turned to him, her expression serious. "My decision to stay was not a rejection of Lyraxis. It was an embrace of a different future. But this future, it requires action. That scout ship from earlier, it was not merely observing." Orion's brow furrowed. "You think they'll try again?" "Perhaps not directly," Astrid mused. "But Lyraxian protocols are absolute. My original mission was paramount. Deviating from it, especially for an unsanctioned alliance, carries significant consequences." She paced the small living space, her tail twitching with a nervous energy he was beginning to recognize. "They will send a diplomatic summons. Or worse, an enforcement team." "Enforcement?" Orion asked, his voice even. "What does that mean?" "To retrieve the transport, to retrieve me, to ensure Lyraxian secrets remain Lyraxian." Astrid stopped, facing him directly. "They would consider my collaboration with you, a human, a breach of security." Orion met her gaze, his stance solid. "Then we prepare. We show them that this alliance isn't a breach, it's a bridge." He stepped closer, reaching out to cup her face in his hands. "You chose this path. We'll face whatever comes together." Astrid leaned into his touch, finding strength in his unwavering resolve. "My people value logic and efficiency above all. Emotion is often seen as a weakness." Her internal thoughts swirled with a mix of apprehension and fierce determination. She had never felt this vulnerable, yet so utterly resolute. This connection with Orion was a powerful, uncharted territory. She knew it would challenge everything she believed about her world. "Then we'll show them the logic of connection," Orion said, his thumb stroking her cheek. "The efficiency of trust, the strength in shared purpose." He had spent his life building structures, ensuring their foundations were sound. Now he was ready to build something far more complex, a bridge between worlds. The next morning the garage felt different. The transport, no longer a vessel of escape, now represented a challenge. Astrid began to reconfigure some of its internal systems, not for flight but for communication. She intended to send a message to Lyraxis, not of defiance but of intent. "I need to adapt the long-range comms array," she explained to Orion, who was meticulously organizing his tools. "A standard Lyraxian diplomatic channel requires specific encryption algorithms. My current setup is optimized for stealth, not overt communication." "Can I help?" Orion asked, picking up a schematic from her workbench. "Tell me what you need." Astrid pointed to a complex diagram. "This energy conduit needs to be rerouted, bypassing the stealth inhibitors. It's delicate work. Any miscalibration could fry the entire comms array." Orion studied the diagram, his finger tracing the intricate pathways. "So, a precision job, my kind of work." He retrieved a specialized soldering iron and a set of fine-tipped tools from his box. His movements were calm, deliberate. As they worked side by side, a comfortable rhythm settled between them. Astrid explained Lyraxian energy flow, the nuances of gravitic resonance. Orion translated her alien concepts into Earth-based engineering principles, offering insights she hadn't considered. Their hands moved in tandem, a silent dance of collaboration. Ronan entered, carrying 2 steaming mugs. "Morning, early birds," he greeted, setting the mugs on a clear spot. "Maeve says you two look like you're building a new galaxy in here." Astrid chuckled, a rare, soft sound, something like that. She accepted a mug, inhaling the rich aroma of Earth coffee. It was another small comfort she was growing accustomed to. "Any news from your people?" Ronan asked, his tone respectful. "Not yet," Astrid replied, her gaze returning to the comms array. "But they will respond. My absence, combined with the repelling of their scout, will not go unnoticed." Her internal thoughts recognized the gravity of her actions. She was treading a path no Lyraxian had before. Orion looked up from a delicate connection he was soldering. "Then we make sure our message is clear. That this isn't a defection but an expansion. A new way forward." Astrid watched him, a profound sense of admiration washing over her. He understood the stakes, yet he faced them with an unwavering calm. His humanity, often dismissed by her people as primitive, was proving to be a formidable strength. She realized that her love for him was intertwined with this shared purpose, a bond that transcended species and culture. This was the foundation of their new mission. They continued their work, the garage filled with the quiet hum of their combined efforts. The transport, once a symbol of her forced isolation, was becoming a beacon of their shared future. The challenge was immense, the path uncertain, but with Orion by her side, Astrid felt a burgeoning hope. Their alliance was not just between 2 individuals, but a promise of something greater, a bridge between worlds that was just beginning to take shape. The Lyraxian response was imminent, but they would be ready. The comms array shimmered, its Lyraxian interface now interwoven with Orion's Earth-based modifications. He tightened the last connection point, a delicate wire he had painstakingly insulated with a polymer compound. Astrid watched, her tail twitching with anticipation, a complex emotion she was still learning to manage on Earth. The air crackled with controlled energy. "That should do it," Orion stated, wiping a smudge from his brow. "The frequency modulator is stable. It can broadcast across interstellar bands and receive their protocols." Astrid moved to the console, her fingers hovering over the newly integrated control panel. "It is impressive. My people's systems are not designed for such adaptability." Her internal thoughts acknowledged the ingenuity. Lyraxian design emphasized singular, specialized function. Orion's approach was a testament to versatile problem-solving. "Necessity is a great engineer," Orion replied, a slight smile touching his lips. He moved beside her, his presence a steady anchor. "Are you ready to send the first message?" Astrid took a deep breath. "Ready as I can be. This message will define our future and perhaps the future of 2 species." She looked at him. "How do we convey partnership, not surrender?" We speak from a position of strength and shared purpose, Orion affirmed. We present the facts. You are here by choice, forging a new path. We offer collaboration, not conflict. Ronan entered the garage carrying a toolbox. Everything looking good, he asked, sensing the shift in atmosphere. We are preparing to contact Astrid's people, Orion explained. Ronan's eyes widened slightly. That's a big step. Indeed, Astrid said. She began inputting the data, compiling a concise message. It outlined her experiences, the unexpected alliance, and the potential for mutual understanding. She described Orion's ingenuity, the stability of her transport, and her unwavering decision to remain. Maeve arrived, her gaze sweeping over the scene. A moment of truth, then. She placed a hand on Astrid's shoulder, a gesture of quiet support. However they react, you are not alone. Astrid felt a surge of warmth. These humans, once strangers, had become her family. Her initial fear of her people's judgment began to recede, replaced by a fierce resolve. She was not just speaking for herself, but for this burgeoning alliance. The messages compiled, Astrid announced, her voice firm, initiating broadcast. A soft hum filled the garage as the comms array powered up. A beam of energy pulsed from the transport's antenna, reaching out into the void. Moments passed in silence, filled with the weight of expectation. Then a sudden, sharp alert blared from the console. Not a response to her message, but a detection. "What is that?" Ronan asked, startled. Astrid quickly scanned the data. Her fur bristled. A deep space gravitic signature, multiple signatures. Her voice tightened with urgency. "It is a Lyraxian fleet, not a scout ship." Orion stepped closer, his hand finding Astrid's. "How many?" he asked, his voice calm despite the developing tension. "At least 3 primary vessels, accompanied by support craft," Astrid reported, her eyes fixed on the rapidly updating trajectory. "They are approaching Earth's system at maximum warp. Their intent is clearly not diplomatic inquiry." Her internal thoughts raced with the implications. This was an enforcement action, an overwhelming show of force. "They must have tracked the scout's signal back here," Maeve murmured, her face grim. "They are coming to retrieve me," Astrid confirmed, her voice laced with a mixture of apprehension and defiance. "And perhaps to ascertain the threat level of Earth." Orion squeezed her hand. "Then we meet them, not with aggression but with our truth." He turned to Ronan. "Ronan, can you access any of Earth's orbital surveillance data? We need to know their exact composition and capabilities." "On it," Ronan said, already moving towards his own console, fingers flying across a keyboard. Astrid looked at the approaching fleet data. Her heart pounded with a renewed sense of purpose. This was the test she had anticipated, but the scale was far greater than expected. Yet, looking at Orion, seeing his unwavering resolve, she felt no despair. They had built something real here, a bridge already formed between them. It would not be easily broken. "They will be here within Earth's outer system in less than 12 hours, Astrid declared, her gaze meeting Orion. "We need a plan." Orion nodded, his eyes reflecting a quiet strength. "We will have one. Together." The impending arrival of the Lyraxian fleet was not an end, but a new beginning for their alliance, a defining moment that would either shatter or solidify the bridge they had built. They stood side by side, united in the face of an interstellar challenge, their love a silent, powerful force against the coming storm. "We need a plan," Astrid repeated, her gaze unwavering. Orion tightened his grip on her hand, a silent promise. "Tell me about Lyraxian command structure, their tactical approach." Astrid focused, her mind sifting through years of protocol. "They operate with absolute efficiency. A fleet of this size means they anticipate resistance, or at least a need for overwhelming presence. My deviation from protocol is a serious offense. They will expect me to comply, or for Earth to be a primitive world incapable of effective defense." She paused. "They value directness, but also a certain intellectual finesse in strategy." "So fighting is out," Orion stated, a pragmatic assessment. Completely, Astrid confirmed. Their vessels are designed for interstellar enforcement. Earth's current orbital defenses would be overwhelmed instantly. Her internal assessment was stark. A direct confrontation meant utter destruction. Ronan looked up from his console. I'm pulling every available satellite feed. Their fleet's formation is tight, standard Lyraxian patrol configuration, but with an aggressive vector. They won't expect us to greet them, Maeve mused, stepping closer. Not with a smile anyway. Orion nodded. We don't hide, we don't fight. We present them with something they cannot ignore, something that challenges their assumptions. He looked at Astrid. They track energy signatures, right? What if we project our intent? Astrid's eyes widened slightly. They assess intent through technological output, yes. A Lyraxian vessel broadcasts its status, its purpose. It is a language of energy. Then we speak that language, Orion declared. We use your transport, not to run, but to communicate. We show them what an alliance truly means, what two worlds can build together. Ronan turned fully intrigued. You mean we turn the transport into a giant diplomatic beacon, a show of combined tech? Precisely, Orion affirmed. Astrid, you said they value intellectual finesse. What if we demonstrate not just Earth's capability, but the synergy of our combined knowledge? We don't just send a message, we send a declaration embodied in technology. Astrid considered this, her brow furrowed. My people respect innovation. They respect strength. But they are also rigid in their adherence to established order. My choice to remain here, to deviate from my mission, will be seen as a challenge to that order. Then we show them a new order, Orion countered, his conviction unwavering. A better one. Maeve, your community has always been about understanding, about bridging gaps. What does that look like on an interstellar scale? Maeve smiled softly. It looks like an open hand, Orion, but one that holds something undeniably valuable. You cannot ask for peace from a position of weakness, nor can you demand it with aggression. You must offer mutual benefit. Mutual benefit, Astrid echoed, the words resonating with her Lyraxian logic. That is the key. They believe they are retrieving a rogue asset and neutralizing a potential threat. We must demonstrate we are neither. We are a new variable. Ronan, Orion said, turning to his friend. We need to reconfigure the transport's main energy output. Not for travel, but for a broad-spectrum, high-intensity broadcast. Something that can project a coherent, complex data stream across a significant distance, even at warp speeds. Ronan's fingers were already flying across his console. I can tap into the gravitic core's secondary relays. We can modulate the output, create a unique signature. We'll need to bypass some safety protocols, but it's doable. He looked at Orion, a spark of excitement in his eyes. We're going to put on a show. And Astrid, Orion continued, his gaze returning to her. You know Lyraxian protocols, their cultural markers. What would impress them? What would make them pause, question their predetermined course? Astrid thought deeply. They respect power, but also precision. A demonstration of control over fundamental forces, perhaps. A stable, resonant energy signature that speaks of harmony, not chaos. Something that expresses advanced theoretical principles they would recognize, but applied in an unfamiliar way. Harmony, Orion repeated, a plan forming in his mind. We don't just broadcast a message. We broadcast a harmony of our technologies. A visual, oral, and energetic display that demonstrates what Earth and Lyraxis together can achieve. They moved with renewed urgency. Ronan began to rig external emitters to the transport, drawing power from the garage's augmented grid. Orion and Astrid dove back into the transport's console, working side by side. Orion focused on adapting Earth-based projection systems, while Astrid translated the Lyraxian interface to allow for this unprecedented output. We have roughly 10 hours until they enter the system's outer marker, Ronan announced. his voice tight with concentration. This is going to be a tight window for calibration. Astrid felt a surge of adrenaline. It will be enough. We must ensure the signal is not just powerful, but perfectly coherent. Any dissonance could be interpreted as a threat or incompetence. Orion placed a hand on her shoulder. We've built a bridge between us. Now we're going to show them we can build a bridge between worlds. His eyes met hers, filled with a quiet determination that mirrored her own. They were not just repairing a ship, they were forging a future. The approaching fleet was not an adversary but an audience, and they would give them a performance they would never forget. They had found their strategy, and the garage hummed with the focused energy of their shared purpose. Ronan secured the last external emitter to the transport's reinforced hull, its metallic clamps biting into the alien alloy. "Power feed is ready," he called out, wiping grease from his brow. "Just need the signal to modulate through it." Inside the transport, Orion adjusted a shimmering Lyraxian crystal, its faint internal light pulsing erratically. "The frequency bandwidth is narrower than anticipated for multispectral output," he stated, his brow furrowed in concentration. "We're trying to push a river through a straw here." Astrid leaned over his shoulder, her finger tracing a holographic schematic. "My people's comms prioritize efficiency over raw power projection. It's designed for precise, encrypted bursts, not a continuous, encompassing wave." She felt a familiar frustration, the clash of two distinct engineering philosophies. "We need to find a way to broaden the output without destabilizing the core." "We're not just sending data," Orion reminded her, his voice calm. "We're sending a statement that needs to be felt, not just heard." He looked at her, a spark of an idea in his eyes. "What if we don't force a broader output but instead create a resonant cascade? Like striking a tuning fork, then letting the vibration spread." Astrid considered it. A harmonic resonance amplification. It's theoretically possible but requires an incredibly stable initial pulse and a finely tuned resonator array. The slightest deviation would shatter the wave. "That's where Ronan's external emitters come in," Orion said, turning to the console. "And where your Lyraxian core's inherent stability becomes our advantage. We use the core as the primary oscillator, then each emitter acts as a secondary resonator, creating a cascading effect that broadens the signal without overloading the initial source." Ronan re-entered the transport, listening to their exchange. "So, you're trying to build a giant interstellar speaker system with a very delicate balance, essentially." "Precisely," Astrid confirmed, a growing excitement in her voice. "But the calibration will be excruciating. Each emitter must be perfectly synchronized to the core's output and to each other." Orion began inputting new parameters, his fingers flying across the holographic keyboard. "We'll need to create a feedback loop between the core and the emitters, constantly adjusting for minute fluctuations. It's a dance between alien tech and Earth ingenuity." Maeve appeared at the garage entrance, carrying a tray with warm drinks. "Sounds like you two are trying to teach the universe to sing," she observed, her smile gentle. "Don't forget to breathe." Astrid offered a genuine smile, accepting a mug of warm, fragrant tea. "Thank you, Maeve. Your presence always brings a sense of calm." She took a sip, the warmth spreading through her. "Calm is good," Orion agreed, not looking up from his work. "But speed is better right now. Ronan, can you start running diagnostics on the power distribution to those emitters? We need absolute consistency." Ronan nodded, heading back out. "On it. I'll make sure every electron knows its place." Hours blurred into a focused whirlwind of activity. Orion and Astrid worked in near silence, communicating with glances, subtle hand gestures, and abbreviated technical terms. They encountered a specific frequency conflict, where the Earth-based projection system tried to override the Lyraxian core's native frequency. "It's like two different languages shouting over each other," Astrid muttered, rubbing her temples. The Lyraxian core's inherent dampening field is fighting the projected wave. Orion paused, his eyes scanning the data stream. What if we don't fight it? What if we use it? Can the core's dampening field be modulated to act as a focusing lens instead of a barrier? Astrid's eyes widened. A reverse field oscillation. It's highly experimental, even on Lyraxis. It would require precise phase alignment to prevent catastrophic energy feedback. But if it works, Orion pressed, it could transform the raw output into a coherent, powerful beam, amplified by the very field that's currently resisting it. It would turn a weakness into a strength. He looked at her, his expression serious. Are you willing to risk it? Astrid met his gaze. The gamble was immense. One miscalculation could burn out the core completely, leaving them defenseless. But the alternative was a weaker, possibly misunderstood message and the certain destruction of Earth. We have to, she said, her voice firm. It aligns with the concept of harmony we're trying to project. Two opposing forces working as one. They began the arduous process of reconfiguring the dampening field. It was slow, painstaking work, requiring constant micro-adjustments and real-time data analysis. Ronan fed them power readings from the external emitters, his voice a steady drone of numbers. Maeve sat quietly in a corner, occasionally bringing them fresh water or a small, protein bar, her presence a silent testament to their shared hope. As the hours dwindled, the garage lights seemed to intensify, reflecting their focused energy. Orion and Astrid moved with an almost balletic precision, their hands often brushing as they reached for controls, a silent current passing between them. The initial erratic pulses from the Lyraxian crystal began to stabilize, taking on a more rhythmic, powerful beat. Phase alignment almost achieved, Astrid announced, her voice strained but triumphant. The reverse field oscillation is holding. A deep, resonant thrum began to emanate from the transport, a low vibration that permeated the garage floor. It wasn't just sound, it was a physical sensation, a testament to the immense power they were harnessing. We're getting a stable energy signature across all external emitters, Ronan reported, his voice tinged with awe. It's coherent and powerful. Orion stepped back, wiping sweat from his brow. One more critical step. We need to program the actual sequence of the message. Not just the words, but the energetic and visual components that will convey our intent. We have less than an hour for final calibration before the fleet reaches detection range. Astrid looked at the thrumming transport, then at Orion. They had built something unprecedented, a testament to unlikely partnership, forged in desperation, fueled by hope. The harmony was not just in the signal, it was in their combined effort, their shared belief. They were ready for the final push. The fate of two worlds rested on the next 60 minutes. What do they need to see? Astrid asked, her voice low, walking towards the console. Logic dictates a display of our combined technological prowess, a demonstration of the core's stability. Orion nodded, leaning over her shoulder. That's part of it, but Lyraxian command is rigid. We need to reach them on a deeper level, show them not just what we can do, but what we are. Humanity isn't just technology, it's resilience, adaptation, cooperation, and a willingness to extend understanding. How do you translate that into an energy signature? Astrid questioned, her brow furrowed. My people value order, efficiency. Emotion is often seen as a variable, a weakness. Then we make the variable a strength, Orion countered, his fingers already dancing over the holographic interface. We start with the core's harmonic resonance, that stable, coherent energy signature we just achieved. That's the foundation. He pulled up a schematic of Earth's solar system, then overlaid it with a representation of Lyraxis's home system. We show them the bridge visually. The distance covered, the alliance formed. Astrid watched, fascinated by his intuitive grasp of communication beyond words, and the humanity aspect. Our journey, Orion stated, pulling up data streams. The moments of ingenuity, The problems we solve together. The ferropolymer, the custom conduit, the power reroute. Each one a testament to shared effort, not Lyraxian superiority or human subjugation. He began weaving these events into a complex, evolving light pattern, translating their collaborative efforts into a dynamic visual narrative that pulsed with the core's energy. It needs to be undeniable, Astrid murmured, her internal processing racing to integrate human emotional concepts with Lyraxian perception. A message that cannot be misinterpreted as a threat, nor as a plea for mercy. It must be an offer of equals. Exactly, Orion confirmed. We project the truth. Our alliance is a new path, not a desperate measure. He highlighted a specific sequence. This section will represent our shared intent for peaceful coexistence. A handshake rendered in pure energy. Astrid added layers of Lyraxian cultural markers, symbols of diplomacy and scientific exchange, carefully integrating them into Orion's design. The display shimmered, a vibrant kaleidoscope of data, emotion, and intent. Their hands moved in tandem across the controls, a seamless dance of two minds, two species, united in a single purpose. Ronan's voice cut through the intense concentration from his monitoring station. 15 minutes to detection range. They're moving fast, and I'm picking up a forward scout. Smaller signature but highly advanced. It's separated from the main fleet. Astrid's head snapped up. A scout. That wasn't in the projections. They must be assessing ahead of the primary fleet. Her internal alarm bells rang. A scout meant preemptive action was possible, perhaps even expected. Then our message needs to be even clearer, even faster, Orion said, not breaking his focus from the programming. He amplified a specific frequency within the message, designed to resonate with Lyraxian sensor arrays, bypassing their usual defensive protocols. This will ensure the scout picks up the full spectrum, not just a partial, distorted signal. Maeve approached them, placing a hand on Orion's shoulder. Her touch was grounding, a silent reminder of the steady earth beneath their feet. You both have given everything, she said softly. Trust in what you've built. Astrid felt a surge of warmth. Maeve's quiet strength was a vital anchor. It wasn't just about technology. It was about the network of support, the unexpected family they had found. 10 minutes, Ronan called out, his voice now laced with urgency. The scout's signal is strengthening. It's preparing for active scanning. Orion finalized a crucial sequence, a complex interplay of light and energy that depicted the shared future of humanity and Lyraxis, not as conqueror and conquered, but as partners. The programming is locked, he announced, stepping back, his breath coming in short bursts. It's as ready as it can be. Astrid moved to the primary activation panel, her hand hovering over the control. Her heart thrummed in rhythm with the transport's core. We transmit the truth, the alliance, the bridge. She looked at Orion, a profound certainty in her eyes, together. He met her gaze, a silent promise exchanged between them, together. 5 minutes, Ronan warned. They're almost on top of us, getting some strange energy readings from the scout, like a focused dampening field. Astrid pressed the activation sequence. A brilliant surge of light erupted from the transport's external emitters, pulsing outwards, carrying their intricate message into the void. The garage vibrated with immense power, the very air alive with generated energy. Immediately, the light began to waver, its coherent energy distorting. Ronan's console blared. Interference. The scout's actively jamming our signal. It's a targeted pulse, attempting to destabilize the core's output. Astrid gripped the console, her knuckles white. The Lyraxian scout was not interested in diplomacy. It was attempting to silence them before the message could fully transmit. The fate of two worlds hung precariously, their carefully crafted bridge under immediate, hostile assault. The core's output is dropping. Ronan yelled, his fingers flying across his own console, trying to reroute power to stabilize the failing frequencies. They're hitting us with a broad-spectrum dampener, not just targeting the message but the very energy signature itself. Orion slammed his hand onto the console next to Astrid. "It's a power drain," he stated, his voice sharp with analysis, not panic. "They're trying to collapse our field. If we lose coherence, the message fragments into static." He looked at Astrid, his eyes burning with fierce resolve. "We need to amplify our own field, use their dampener against them." Astrid met his gaze. She understood the inherent risk. Revering the polarity to create a counterpulse, it could overload the core completely. The thought sent a chill through her fur. "It's a focused counterpulse," Orion corrected, already moving, his hands reaching for an auxiliary panel. "We're not fighting their power, we're using its resonance to sharpen ours. Think of it as tuning the core to vibrate at the edge of their dampening frequency, making it invisible to their jammer but still projecting our signal." "It's never been attempted on Lyraxian tech," Astrid whispered, but even as she spoke, the genius of his idea resonated. Lyraxian engineers focused on brute force and broad-spectrum solutions. Orion's approach was surgical, subtle. It was Earth ingenuity at its finest. "We don't have time for theory," Orion said, his movements precise. "Ronan, can you reroute all available auxiliary power directly to the core's primary oscillator? We'll need every joule." On it, Ronan's console flashed green as he confirmed the transfer. The transport groaned, a deep, metallic sound, as its internal system strained. "Astrid, I need you to manually calibrate the output regulators," Orion instructed, pointing to a series of intricate Lyraxian controls. "We're going to create a harmonic cascade. The core will oscillate, not dampen. Increase the temporal displacement field by 0.3%, then stabilize it. The window will be narrow, but it should punch through their interference." Astrid nodded, her fear giving way to focused determination. This was the dance she knew, the intricate ballet of energy and machine. Her fingers flew, adjusting the Lyraxian controls with practiced ease, her mind already calculating the complex variables. The display flickered, showing the core's energy field struggling against the external pressure, like a fragile bubble under assault. Maeve stepped closer, her hand gently resting on Orion's shoulder. "You faced worse, Orion," she said, her voice a soft, steadying presence. "Trust your instincts." Her words were a quiet anchor in the storm of flashing lights and blaring alarms. Orion glanced at her, a quick, grateful nod. He returned his full attention to the auxiliary panel, making micro-adjustments, his brow furrowed in concentration. Astrid, ready for the cascade. "Ready," she confirmed, her voice tight with anticipation. The Lyraxian interface glowed, her hands hovering over the final sequence. "Now," Orion commanded. Astrid pressed the sequence. A shudder ran through the transport, a violent tremor that shook the entire garage. The external emitters, which had been flickering erratically, suddenly flared with renewed intensity. The light they projected twisted, contorted, then compressed into a focused beam, cutting through the scout's dampening field like a laser through mist. "It's working," Ronan exclaimed, his voice filled with awe. "The signal's punching through, but it's unstable, Orion. The core's integrity is dropping rapidly." Orion swore under his breath. "The scout's adapting. It's trying to match our frequency, collapse the cascade." He looked at Astrid. "We need more power, a final surge. Can you push the core beyond its safety parameters just for a few seconds?" Astrid hesitated. Pushing the core past redline was a death sentence for the transport, potentially for them. But the message, the alliance, Earth's future, it was all on the line. "I can try," she said, her voice grim, "but it will damage the core severely." "We'll repair it later," Orion insisted, his gaze unwavering. "Right now, we get the message out." Her internal conflict raged for a heartbeat, then dissolved into resolute action. She slammed her palm onto an emergency override, bypassing safety protocols. A high-pitched whine erupted from the transport, growing louder, more piercing. The air crackled with raw energy. The light from the emitters intensified further, a pure, brilliant beam cutting a path through the void. Ronan's console showed the message transmission rate skyrocketing, data packets flooding out into interstellar space. "It's going through, all of it, the full diplomatic sequence," he shouted, but the scout's still trying to fight it. Its dampening field is fluctuating wildly. Astrid watched the Lyraxian display, her heart pounding. The core's integrity indicator plunged into the red, then into a critical warning zone. The transport vibrated violently, threatening to tear itself apart. "It's too much," she gasped, her hands shaking. "The structural integrity is failing." "Hold it," Orion yelled, his voice strained. He was at her side, his hand covering hers on the console, lending his strength, his presence a solid anchor amidst the chaos. "Just a few more seconds, Astrid. Get it all out." The images and data of their alliance, the hopes for peace, the testament to humanity's ingenuity, streamed outwards. It was a desperate prayer, a defiant shout against the encroaching darkness. Then, with a final, agonizing shriek of straining metal and overloaded circuits, the message completed transmission. The brilliant beam of light from the transport's emitters flickered, then dimmed, receding into a steady glow. The violent vibration ceased, replaced by a low, mournful hum. Ronan let out a long, shaky breath. "It's done." The entire message transmitted. The scout's dampening field just collapsed. "It's retreating, Orion, full burn, leaving the system." Astrid slumped against the console, her body weak with relief and exhaustion. Her vision blurred for a moment, the adrenaline draining from her system. She had pushed the transport to its absolute limit, perhaps beyond. But the message had gone through. Orion pulled her into a tight embrace, his arms wrapping around her, holding her close as the tension finally broke. "We did it, Astrid," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "We did it." She leaned into him, feeling the steady beat of his heart against her ear. The warmth of his presence was a balm to her frayed nerves. They had gambled everything, and for this moment they had won. Maeve approached, her eyes shining with pride. "A brave choice," she said, her gaze sweeping over the exhausted pair. "You showed them the heart of humanity, Orion, and the strength of your alliance, Astrid." Ronan, still at his console, let out a nervous laugh. "Well, the good news is the message got out. The bad news is the main fleet is now 20 minutes from detection range, and your core is looking like a used fireworks display, Astrid." He turned, a wry grin on his face. "But hey, you're alive, and you sent them a message they won't forget." Astrid pulled back slightly from Orion, a new resolve hardening her expression. They had sent their truth into the void, a beacon of hope against the Lyraxian fleet's hostile approach. But the fight was far from over. The message was transmitted, but its reception, its understanding, and the fleet's response remained unknown. They had bought themselves a chance, a precious few minutes before the full force of Lyraxis arrived, demanding an answer. Her hand found Orion's, a silent testament to their unwavering bond. Whatever came next, they would face it together. They braced themselves. Ronan stared at the console, monitoring the rapidly shrinking distance to the Lyraxian fleet. The transport's core whined, protesting its recent extreme exertion. Energy readings flickered erratically. "They're slowing," Ronan announced, his voice tight. "At least the lead vessels are. No attack pattern detected yet." Astrid exchanged a quick glance with Orion. Hope, fragile but persistent, sparked in her eyes. Perhaps the message reached them. "We can only wait," Orion said, his hand still firm on hers. He moved to the transport's primary view screen, adjusting the focus. A cluster of sleek, angular ships materialized on the display, a silent armada poised on the edge of Earth's atmosphere. Then a new alert flashed on Ronan's screen. "Incoming hail. It's from the flagship." Astrid's breath hitched. This was it, the moment of truth. She moved to the comms console, her fingers hovering over the activation sequence. "Patch it through, Ronan. Visual only for now." The view screen shimmered, resolving into the stern face of a Lyraxian commander. Her fur was a deep obsidian, her eyes sharp, intelligent. She was unfamiliar to Astrid, likely a high-ranking officer from the Enforcement Division. "This is Commander Vera of the Lyraxian Enforcement Fleet," the officer stated, her voice devoid of warmth but also, surprisingly, of immediate aggression. "Identify yourselves and explain the unauthorized transmission, specifically the segment pertaining to a human alliance." Astrid stepped forward, her posture regal despite the exhaustion. "Commander Vera, I am Astrid of Lyraxis. The transmission was from me. I wish to speak to the Lyraxian Council directly." Vera's gaze narrowed. "The Council has received a heavily encrypted data packet. Its contents are under review. Your alliance is unprecedented. Our protocols demand immediate retrieval of unauthorized personnel and assessment of any potential threats." "And what did the data packet say, Commander?" Orion interjected, stepping beside Astrid. His presence was calm, unwavering. "Did it speak of threat or of potential?" Vera's eyes flickered to Orion, a momentary surprise in their depths. "It spoke of an anomaly, a human, Orion, who demonstrates a unique aptitude for Lyraxian technology, and a Lyraxian, Astrid, who has deviated from all standard protocols." She paused. "It also contained a detailed argument for a new form of interstellar engagement, one predicated on mutual benefit rather than isolation." Astrid felt a surge of relief. "That was our message, Commander, a message of understanding, of shared ingenuity, of an alliance built on respect, not conquest." "We detected an unprecedented energy signature during the transmission," Vera continued, her tone shifting slightly, a hint of curiosity replacing some of the rigidity. "A harmonic resonance that integrated both Lyraxian and human technological principles. It was unexpected. Our analysis confirms its authenticity. It appears to be a genuine blend of methodologies." "It was proof," Orion said, his voice resonating with conviction. "Proof that our worlds are not so different, that our knowledge can combine to create something greater." Vera remained silent for a long moment, her gaze sweeping between Astrid and Orion. "The Council is deliberating this. They have ordered the fleet to hold position. No hostile action will be taken unless provoked. However, a full diplomatic delegation from the flagship will be dispatched to your location for direct discussion. Immediately." Ronan let out a low whistle. "Well, that's better than orbital bombardment." Maeve, who had been listening quietly, placed a reassuring hand on Ronan's shoulder. "Sometimes, the quietest words carry the most weight." Astrid felt a wave of profound relief wash over her. It wasn't full acceptance, but it was a beginning. A chance. "We await your delegation, Commander. We have much to discuss." The screen flickered and Vera's image dissolved. Astrid turned to Orion, a radiant smile breaking across her face. "We did it, Orion." They listened. He pulled her into another embrace, this one filled with triumph and shared joy. "It was never just a message, Astrid. It was our story, our truth." Minutes later, a smaller Lyraxian shuttle detached from the flagship, descending towards Earth. Ronan had already contacted local authorities, explaining a diplomatic incident requiring a secure landing zone near their garage. As the shuttle landed gently outside the makeshift hangar, Orion and Astrid stood together, ready. Ronan and Maeve remained inside, observing. "You're not nervous?" Ronan asked Astrid. She shook her head. "Not anymore. We showed them who we are. Now we show them what we can build." The shuttle's ramp lowered, and two Lyraxian officials, accompanied by Commander Vera, stepped out. Their expressions were still serious, but Vera's gaze held a flicker of something new as she approached. "Astrid of Lyraxis," Vera began, her voice softer now. "The Council has reached a preliminary decision. Your actions, while a grave breach of protocol, have presented an unprecedented opportunity. The harmonic resonance of your transmission demonstrated a potential for technological synergy that cannot be ignored. We are here to discuss the terms of a provisional alliance. Astrid nodded, her resolve unwavering. We welcome the discussion, Commander. Our intention was always peace and a future where our peoples can learn from each other. She gestured to Orion. This is Orion, my partner in this endeavor. He is a testament to humanity's potential. Orion extended a hand to Vera, a gesture of respect she cautiously reciprocated. We believe in building bridges, not walls. Vera regarded his hand, then his eyes. That sentiment was clearly conveyed in your transmission. It was disarming. The delegation was led inside. Over the next several hours, discussions began, cautious but open. Astrid, with Orion by her side, eloquently explained her journey, her initial prejudice, and the profound realization that shared values and ingenuity transcended species. Orion provided insights into human motivations, emphasizing a desire for peaceful exploration and mutual advancement. Ronan, ever practical, even managed to charm a junior Lyraxian technician with his knowledge of energy conduits, demonstrating that common ground could be found in unexpected places. Maeve offered refreshments, her quiet, steady presence a constant anchor, symbolizing the warmth and welcoming spirit of Earth. As the discussions progressed, a tangible shift occurred. The Lyraxian delegation, initially rigid, began to soften, intrigued by the honest, direct approach of Orion and the compelling testimony of Astrid. The unique energy signature of their combined technologies, a physical manifestation of their alliance, had clearly made a profound impact. Days turned into weeks. The Lyraxian fleet remained in orbit but not as a threat. Instead, it became a symbol of a new beginning. Preliminary agreements were drafted, focusing on cultural exchange, shared scientific research, and resource development on neutral, uninhabited worlds. Astrid, no longer merely a stranded mechanic, became the primary liaison, a true ambassador for a new interstellar era. Orion, with his practical genius and steady leadership, became her indispensable partner, advising on human Lyraxian relations and technological integration. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues, Astrid and Orion stood outside the garage, their hands clasped. The Lyraxian shuttle, now a regular sight, had just departed after another day of negotiations. It truly happened, Astrid murmured, leaning her head on Orion's shoulder. A new future, our future. It was always possible, Orion replied, his voice soft. We just had to show them how. He squeezed her hand. You taught me to look beyond what I knew, and I hope I showed you that strength can be found in unexpected places. You showed me that and so much more, she said, looking up at him, her eyes shining with warmth. You showed me home. Ronan emerged from the garage, wiping grease from his hands. They're talking about setting up a joint research facility. Imagine that. Lyraxian engineers in our old workshop. He grinned. I might actually learn something new. Maeve joined them, a serene smile on her face. The universe is a vast place full of wonders, and sometimes the greatest wonders are found right where you least expect them. She looked at Astrid and Orion. You two have woven a new story, one of courage and connection. May it inspire many more. Orion wrapped his arm around Astrid, pulling her closer. The stars began to pepper the darkening sky, no longer distant, unknown lights, but beacons of a future they would explore together. Their alliance, born of a damaged core and an unexpected connection, had blossomed into a bridge between worlds. Their journey had not ended. It had simply begun a new, grander chapter, hand in hand, under the vast, welcoming expanse of the cosmos. All threads converged here, a testament to love, ingenuity, and the boundless potential of unexpected alliances.